Hey, welcome to SI Now. It is Friday, February 10th, and I'm Maggie Gray.
And I'm Ryan Aselta.
Coming up on today's show, Phil apologizes for a tweet in a tweet.
Yeah, he kind of apologized, right?
Semi-apologized, but we begin with Kevin Durant. Ryan, add this to the list of infamous returns. Of course, we had LeBron James playing in Cleveland for the first time after the decision. Then we had Johnny Damon's return to Boston after signing with the rival Yankees. Actually, that was before LeBron. Now we have Kevin Durant returning to Oklahoma City, a town he called home for 8 seasons. Ryan, will this be the most awkward reunion we've ever seen?
Awkward's the best way to describe this. And interesting, you know, these reunions are usually about the player and the fans, Maggie. This is about player and player, and that's what makes it so awkward until Westbrook and Durant can just hug it out, you know, be done with this already, at least talk to each other. It's going to be like this every time we play. And we heard Westbrook talk about, he was asked whether he's going to talk with Durant this weekend. He says, I don't talk to anyone during a game. Well, yeah, that makes it even more awkward until they can settle this thing and move on. This is what it's going to be.
Let's be honest. It was awkward in Oklahoma City when Durant and Westbrook were teammates. It's going to be doubly awkward with Durant coming back for the first time. Now, they've already played twice. Both of those games happened in Golden State. Both of those were wins by the Warriors. And we saw Russell Westbrook stood to his guns. He does not dap up any of the players before they go out on the court. He doesn't talk to anyone. So it's going to be extremely awkward. I mean, is there a chance at points that maybe Westbrook could be guarding Durant at one point? I mean, with all the switches they do in the NBA, we have to get that at least once.
Yeah, you would think that they end up on each other at least once. And as we look at some of the most infamous returns right there are some good ones. But yeah, as we said, those were really player-fan. LeBron going back to Cleveland, I watched the video of that again. Wow, that was venomous, that return. The Johnny Damon one kind of gets forgotten, but he really helped the Red Sox win that World Series. Went and played for, of all teams, the Yankees, and came back. They were handing out flyers of a picture of Damon saying, not wanted. People were screaming Judas to Johnny Damon. So that was pretty nasty as well. This will be a little bit different tonight, I think.
It's going to be boos, but I'm not so sure how long and loud those boos are going to be. Now, we just saw and heard some epic booing after the Super Bowl. Roger Goodell hearing it. I didn't even know there were that many Patriots fans at the game, but clearly there were people upset with Goodell after the Super Bowl. Will Durant get that same treatment?
I don't think it'll be quite like that. I mean, Roger Goodell's public enemy number one. You don't have to be a Patriots fan to boo the commissioner of your league. We've seen that with, you know, Gary Bettman over the years, who gets booed for some reason year in and year out.
Lots of reasons.
Yeah, you know, commissioners are just not liked. When it comes to Durant, I think there's going to be plenty of boos. I think there will be some cheering for him, some standing ovation. Let's face it, Durant did a lot for that Oklahoma City community. When the tornado came through there back in 2013, he was out on the front lines helping people. We all remember his speech when he won the MVP, very complimentary towards the community. So because of that, I think there's going to be a little bit of support spattering in with a hefty amount of boos.
Nobody will ever get booed as badly as Roger Goodell was booed after that Super Bowl. Maybe politicians or something that really gets people riled up, but I don't think any sports star will ever get booed the way that Goodell did. I mean, if you're Bettman or if you're David Stern, you have to be sitting back and thinking, gosh, I guess it really wasn't that bad. Maybe I should have counted my blessings while I had him. At least I'm not Roger.
You know what? And he was on the podium, so everyone was waiting for him, knew he was coming. It was a big buildup. These boos in these type of games, they're usually quick during introductions, and that's really about it, and then the game moves on. Speaking of the game, Maggie, who do you think's going to have the bigger game?
Yeah,
you talk about Westbrook or Durant. Who has the big night?
I think in terms of numbers, I think it's going to be Westbrook. And first of all, his team just needs him to do more. If you look at his statistics across the board this year, basically every single category, he's been up because he's just had to do a lot. We all know about averaging the triple-double, but I believe that since Golden State won the first two, and you're going to have the Warriors on the second half of a back-to-back, that I think Westbrook is primed for a big game. That's why he's our adrenaline performer, presented by Toyota. Let's go places. He's going to go big places on tomorrow night. He's going to go right to the W column.
I'm going to say Durant's going to have the bigger game, like he has the first two meetings. Something about getting together against Durant puts Russell Westbrook in a weird place. I don't know if he's out of his element, puts too much pressure on himself, but this is a guy who's a 41% shooter during the season. 2 games this year against the Warriors, 31%. We're talking about 16 turnovers, 3 of 10 shooting from three-point range. Yes, he had a triple-double in one of those, but it wasn't pretty. That's not the Russell Westbrook we're used to seeing. Durant, meantime, Are you kidding me? He's averaging 39.5 points a game in these 2 games. For some reason, Durant has stepped his game up when facing Westbrook.
I see what you're saying about Westbrook and his shooting percentage, but you have to recalibrate that when he's home as opposed to on the road. Everything that comes along with the advantage of being home, I think he'll be better.
And we'll see that first time in OKC tonight. And while Durant and the Warriors will be in Oklahoma City this weekend, the Knicks are going to play their first game since the ugly incident involving Charles Oakley. Now, the game tonight against the Nuggets is at Madison Square Garden, which makes for a must-watch game, must-see TV, which usually you wouldn't say for a Knicks-Nuggets game.
Nope.
You just want to see how the fans are going to respond to the organization here, Maggie. Oakley spoke last night, said cameras and security always follow him whenever he's at the Garden. He also said some guys reached out to him. LeBron James showed support. Michael Jordan as well. Maggie, what do you think the next chapter in this train wreck of a reality show is going to be?
You know, this is right out of the Garden's playbook, first of all. Having security follow people who have said critical things about the organization. It happened to Frank Isola for years. The Garden security used to follow him around. And I believe Oakley when he says that people are, you know, on the lookout for him because he has been critical of the franchise. If I'm James Dolan, I better hope that JD and the Straight Shot have a gig tonight because I don't want to be anywhere near this. I mean, we talked about Goodell being the one to get the most boos. Okay, maybe I'd make an amendment for James Dolan. He is going to be enemy number one. He's incredibly unpopular already with the fan base for some of the signings, some of the coaching hirings and firings. We all remember that infamous letter that he wrote back to a fan who was critical of him, and you know, he kind of is on high in his castle there saying, well, if you don't like it, you're sad. Go be a fan of the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, you just can't treat your fan base like that, especially when they're absolutely dead on correct. The Knicks have been an embarrassment under James Dolan. So I would expect this reality show takes an ugly turn if James Dolan is sitting courtside.
I can't imagine he's going to be there tonight.
They're going to be throwing
not tonight. Hey, sit it out, James. Stay home. Watch this one on TV. Like Maggie said, maybe your band's got a gig tonight. That would help things. But if he is there, you know, if he isn't there, he's still going to hear it from the fans tonight. They heard it last night. In the Rangers game, which obviously Dolan owns that team as well, fans started chanting Charles Oakley at the hockey game last night. There was a report this morning I heard that players were considering wearing number 34 on their practice warm-up shirts in support of Oakley. I can't imagine the Knicks allowing that to happen, but it shows the momentum is in the favor of Charles Oakley. And this could be dangerous for James Dolan to show up tonight in this type of atmosphere with those type of fans. I don't know. When you think about LeBron, though, LeBron's had a lot to say. He had his comment, Oakley for president, I believe he said to the media last night. You think LeBron's just piling on just a little bit to stick it to Phil and the Knicks?
Maybe. I mean, obviously LeBron was very upset with the posse comment that Phil Jackson made earlier this season. You know, LeBron at one point, they were trying to woo him to come to New York when he was making his infamous decision. They missed out on him, so maybe there's a little bit of sour grapes there between the two organizations. Perhaps maybe LeBron is piling on, although I think LeBron genuinely, watched Charles Oakley, I think, as a child. I think there's really not a player like Charles Oakley now in today's NBA, maybe Draymond Green, but because the rules are the way they are, you're not getting that kind of physicality in the way that Charles Oakley used to bring it. He was intimidating, and I think, players look to him as this sort of throwback, and by all accounts, I mean, he seemed like he was a really good teammate, and guys still obviously respect him.
And let's face it, players are a close fraternity.
Sure.
They see one of their own, whether he's retired or not, get treated like that in a sad scene where Oakley's on the ground being roughed up by security. They're going to come to the side of the player in that situation.
One thing I was a little surprised, though, watching TNT last night, and you had Charles and you had Kenny and Shaq, none of them really came out in favor of Oakley. I mean, they didn't go out of their way like LeBron did, like CP3 has done on Instagram, Dwayne Wade. I was a little shocked by that. They took a more measured approach, saying this was ugly on all sides.
Right.
For the NBA, it was ugly, but no one said, like LeBron did or like Wade did, this is an outrage. How could you treat a former player like this?
You know what? I think there's two issues here. It's what happened before security came over and what happened after. What happened afterwards, I don't think anyone's supporting the physical nature of how this thing turned with Charles Oakley. Beforehand, I don't see a ton of support for Charles Oakley from players and even some fans. Charles Oakley put himself in that situation. I've heard the interviews. I'm not buying the fact that he didn't know where he was sitting. Getting a ticket, he says he bought it with his own money. I guess a friend bought the tickets for them. They didn't know that was 4 rows from Jim Dolan. I am not buying that. He knows where Dolan likes to sit. I know Dolan moves around a little bit.
He's not at every home game either.
Sometimes courtside, sometimes at a box. But he knows an area where Jim Dolan might be, and where his voice could be heard, I think that's too big of a coincidence. I think he knew what he was doing.
Listen, the number one person that we need to hear from, John McEnroe. He was the man who was there.
He walked him out.
We'd all believe whatever John McEnroe says, he can settle this thing once and for all. Come on, Johnny Mac. We need you. We need you more than ever. Well, basketball isn't the only thing to watch this weekend. Here's a look at what else is on the sports calendar. This is SI Now's Weekend Drive presented by Toyota. Let's go places. We'll start in Brooklyn, New York for UFC 208. Many have said that Holly Holm peaked when she beat Ronda Rousey 15 months ago. And considering Holm has lost 2 straight matches, this is a must-win. Her challenger, Germaine de Randamie.
There are more fighters in this business that lose fights. This is MMA. We fight with 4-ounce gloves. If you get hit in the face, it hurts. You cannot take a punch with these gloves. It's not up to us to decide when somebody's done or when somebody peaked and somebody's dropping. Maybe people said that I was dropping and I wasn't good after Amanda Nunes beat me. But here I am. I'm headlining a UFC event right now. It's not up to us. It's up to a fighter. A fighter knows itself. I believe, fully hearted, I will face the best Holly Holm Saturday.
This featherweight bout is de Randamie's first shot at a title. She is coming off 2 straight wins by knockout. Next up, we head to North London, where it is crowded at the top of the Premier League standings. If Tottenham wants to gain ground, they have to beat Liverpool this Saturday. Spurs manager Mauricio Pochettino expects a battle.
The important thing is to try to get the 3 points because our objective is to introduce the gap against Chelsea. But for that we need to be ready to fight because it will be a very, very, very difficult game. They are not in a good run, but Liverpool have a very good player. For me, it's one of the best squads, not only in England, if not in Europe.
Liverpool is tied for first in the league with 52 goals scored. However, Tottenham ranks second in the league with 11 clean sheets in 24 games. Lastly, some NBA action in Oklahoma City. Kevin Durant played 8 years in OKC, and although he's now with Golden State, Warriors head coach Steve Kerr figures it will be an emotional homecoming for the superstar.
I can't even imagine what it'll feel like for KD. That's a totally different level. It's one thing to be a role player for a few years, but to be a superstar in one town and have the whole place adore you, the whole city, to go back is going to be obviously very emotional for him.
The Warriors are currently 2-0 against the Thunder this season, with Durant averaging nearly 40 points per game against his old team. And that's what's in store for this weekend.
All right, obviously a big weekend ahead. And speaking of the weekend, what do the Mets, Rays, Red Sox, and Indians all have in common? Well, all 4 teams will have pitchers and catchers officially report to spring training this weekend. While most of the country's in a deep freeze, the sights and sounds of summer will start coming out of Florida and Arizona. To get us ready, I caught up with Ken Rosenthal from the MLB Network studios in Secaucus, New Jersey, courtesy of Toyota. Let's go places. All right, Kenny, hard to believe it, but first group of pitchers and catchers are going to report this weekend down in Florida and out in Arizona. So many great storylines to talk about. Which one are you really keeping an eye on to see how it plays out for the start of spring training?
Ryan, the one that jumps out to me is how the Marlins will go on without Jose Fernandez and how the Royals will go on without Yordano Ventura. Of course, both were young, talented pitchers. Both have died tragically within the past year. This will be the Marlins' first spring without Fernandez. They played some games without him last year. And, of course, the Royals have not played a single game since losing Ventura. Both teams have taken steps to replace these pitchers. The Marlins have signed Edinson Volquez. They traded for Dan Straley. The Royals signed Jason Hamill. But this is more than simply a performance question. Jose Fernandez, in particular, was a big presence in that clubhouse. And Yordano Ventura had a smile that could light up a room as well.
All right, Ken, how about the Indians here? Find themselves kind of in a strange position, defending American League champions. Many considered them the favorite in the AL. Why should we consider the Tribe the team to beat in the American League this year?
Because their starting pitchers are again healthy, which they weren't at the end of last season. Because they have Andrew Miller for a full season, and because they got the free agent bargain of the offseason, Edwin Encarnacion, 3 years, $60 million. They also signed Boone Logan, a good left-handed reliever, Austin Jackson on a minor league deal. They're hopeful that Michael Brantley will come back from the shoulder issues that he has had. I'm not so sure about that, but this looks like a really talented team, Ryan, the team to beat in the American League.
And when you talk of talent, we got to talk about the defending World Series champs, the Chicago Cubs. The drought is over. Everyone is curious to see how they now respond with life after the drought. Could 2017 actually be better than 16 for the Cubs?
I have a hard time believing that. It's difficult to repeat in this sport because of how deep your pitchers go into October, and often they don't bounce back as sharply as you would hope. The Cubs are a little bit different this season. They don't have Dexter Fowler anymore. They're going to go with Almora in center field with John Jay. They've traded for Wade Davis to replace Chapman as their closer. They've got Brett Anderson for rotation depth with Mike Montgomery moving into the rotation. They're still an immensely talented club, still replete with young players that are getting better. I expect them to be quite good. As good as last year, that will depend on their rotation.
All right, we talked about the big boys. How about a team that might surprise us? Who's the one team to keep an eye on that may have not been all that good last year, but could surprise teams this year?
I'll go with the Rockies, Ryan, and the reason is they believe that they're on the verge of becoming a contender. Now, I'm not necessarily buying that. I seem to buy into them every year, and every year I'm wrong. But they've backed that belief up with some free agent signings. Ian Desmond, for $70 million, he'll play first base. Mike Dunn, left-handed reliever, they gave him $19 million, which was a lot of money in that market. And then Greg Holland, future closer perhaps. He's the former closer of the Royals. He's coming back from Tommy John surgery, and they're hopeful that he will regain his form. They've got very young starting pitching. They've got young catching as well, and that could be an issue.
Big change up in Boston, Ken. For the first time, feels like forever, no Big Papi with the Red Sox. What will that do to the dynamic of that Boston team?
The big question, Ryan, is what it will do to them offensively. I'm not worried about the leadership void. They've got Dustin Pedroia. They've got some young players like Betts emerging in that vein. But the question is, can the Red Sox be as strong an offensive team without the guy who was one of the dominant offensive players in the game last season? And what they're anticipating is continued growth from some of the youngsters that I mentioned. Betts, Bogarts, Andrew Benintendi stepping into their lineup. They might not be as potent, but they should be really good. And, oh, yes, they've still added Chris Sale to their rotation, Tyler Thornburg to their bullpen. I expect them to be quite good this season.
I want to specifically ask you about this report about the possible change to extra innings, starting extra innings with a man on second base. Kenny, how likely is that to be implemented at the major league level over the next couple of years?
Over the next couple of years, probably not likely. Could it happen 3, 4, 5 years down the line? It's possible, but there probably will be a lot of resistance. And the fan reaction from what I've seen has been mostly negative. And that's not going to dictate what baseball does, but this is a sport of tradition. So they're going to start it in the WBC, the World Baseball Classic, and in the lower rookie leagues. They're going to try it, see how it works. What's interesting is that Joe Torre is an advocate of this kind of thing. I'm not sure it ultimately ever gets done, but it is an interesting concept for a sport that is trying to find ways to increase the action.
Oh, I hope you're right. Tradition. What about tradition, Ken? Come on. Can't believe Torre is on board for this. Ken Rosenthal, Fox Sports, MLB Network. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right, let's welcome in Sports Illustrated senior writer Ben Ryder. And Ben, let's start with the rule changes here. You heard Ken Rosenthal's take. This runner on second base proposed for extra innings. Joe Torre, of all people, is really behind this thing. They may implement it in the Gulf Coast League, the World Baseball Classic. What's your take when you hear about this idea?
Come on, Joe. You know, baseball is Baseball's doing just fine without this. You know, among other problems, I think that this would incentivize managers to do exactly what baseball doesn't want them to do, which is to use up their relief pitchers early on if they know that they're less likely to need them later. I think there's a lot of problems that could go along with this. I mean, you know, baseball has some issues, but I don't think anybody thinks extra innings is one of them.
Right.
Like, extra innings is fun, right?
Okay, it happened 7.6% of the time last season that you had these extra inning games. So that's a very small sample size considering you have 2,430 games being played overall. Now, listen, I understand that this seems ridiculous, but am I okay to say, like, I think it might be kind of cool, except for if you somehow have Bartolo Colon on second base, and he's the one who's going to have to try to win it, you know, and you're going to have to see him try to book it around the bases.
That may make it even more entertaining.
Well,
Maggie.
Yeah, maybe
that's the rest of his career to his 50s, a pitch runner.
He's a pitch runner, right? That'd be hilarious. I'm someone who I loved in hockey when they do the shootout, which I know hockey purists hate. I'm okay with playing around when it comes to extra innings. Can't be for the postseason. Obviously, that's sacred. You have to leave it right where it is. For the regular season, if they're trying to shorten games, if they're trying to get a move on things, why not?
Look, and Joe also says, oh, you know, how fun is it to see a position player come out on the mound and be forced to pitch? And that is
awesome.
fun.
That is awesome.
Great.
All the things that he's saying are not fun are actually fun.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
This kind of drives me crazy, too, guys. We've heard this pace of play. We hear it in every sport now. We hear it in football, baseball now. Golf has got a big issue with pace of play. What is the rush?
Yeah.
This is entertainment. We're enjoying watching a baseball game. So what? Maybe they go 12 innings one night in a month. Is it that big a deal, Ben?
And this is coming a day after reports came out that the Miami Marlins are in negotiations to be sold for $1.6 billion. This is one of the lowest ranking revenue-wise teams in the league. I think this league is pretty healthy. I think they should just kind of keep doing what they're doing.
Oh, you guys are totally wrong about this. Have you not heard about millennials and their attention spans? I've looked at my phone and checked it 5 times just while Ryan was asking that question. The thing is that it goes along with another one of these proposed rule changes, which is the strike zone being shortened, I guess, moved up, if you will, made smaller, which I think is going to lead to more walks, which is going to make the game a lot longer. I mean, I think pace of play is a legitimate issue for Major League Baseball. Yes, the revenue is good right now, but I think they're really looking at it. And I think if you make the strike zone smaller, Ben, these games are going to get much longer.
We are not vibing today, Maggie.
No, we're not.
I think this one is the right call, and here's why. The strike zone has actually expanded over the past several years. Every year it expands from where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be at the top of the knee. Then they trained umpires to call at the bottom of the knee as a margin of error. Then what happened is umpires got too good with the help of Quest Tech and these pitch tracking technologies. So the strike zone's actually about a kneecap distance bigger than it's supposed to be. Just put it back to where it's supposed to be, and we'll be fine.
This is why I'm a proponent of having the machine call the balls and strikes.
Well, we could do that,
send the message to the umpire in the earpiece.
You take the human element out of it. No way. And this is an overcompensation. How about training the umpires to actually call the strike zone instead of calling it below the knee?
Well, that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, no, they're bringing it up 2 inches so then umpires will actually call it at the original strike zone at the knee. I'm not in favor of any of these changes. I'm sorry. Call me whatever you want, guys. One guy who's not in favor of this strike zone change is Noah Syndergaard, who I know you spent a lot of time with. He had a tweet, a very quick, definitive tweet on the potential rule changes, especially the strike zone, saying, no.
I love it.
Well, typical Syndergaard, he's made his point known. Now, Syndergaard, the subject of your feature in Sports Illustrated, Noah has almost literally turned into a superhero in New York, Ben. How can he be so comfortable in this new role, yet he still says he feels like that awkward, chubby kid that we saw in those yearbook photos?
Because I think that is still who he is. You know, he's got the armor that he's cultivated, the 101-mile-an-hour heater, the long hair, the nickname of Thor. He's up to 253 pounds this offseason, as I saw, so he's going to be even bigger than ever. But underneath, he's still this guy right here. That's when his high school freshman
aren't we all that
at
guy,
Mansfield
though?
freshman.
We've all got one of those.
We are.
At some point, weren't we all that guy?
But look, a lot of guys of his profile have never had anyone say no to them their entire lives, you know, since they were 10, 11, 12 years old. Noah was not like that. Even going into senior year, he was not a top draft prospect. He was thrown 89. So he kind of developed this outsider perspective on things. One reason that he loves comedy, you know, that's kind of like a haven for outsiders. And he still carries that, even though he's now, you know, the most fearsome pitcher, the hardest throwing starting pitcher in recorded history. That picture was only taken 10 years ago, and he really only became a star about 6 or 7 years ago.
He's a late bloomer.
Late bloomer. And
Aren't
that
we
would
all?
be considered the awkward stage,
Yes.
right, guys? I think we all had a little point in our lives.
I burned all those photos as far as I know, I think, to my knowledge. This is very interesting because so far, as Syndergaard's fame has grown in New York, he has really handled it very well. He hasn't stepped on any landmines. Saw Matt Harvey a couple years ago. It took him a while to kind of ease into this sort of fame where you're getting tracked everywhere you go and everything you say becomes front page news. Now, when you asked, I presume you asked Syndergaard if he is the leader of the team, and he said of the pitching staff, yes, and then also called his relationship with Matt Harvey, quote unquote, professional. Is that going to come back to bite Syndergaard?
I don't think so. I think one of the reasons that he's worked so well in New York and Harvey hasn't is he is pretty much an open book. I don't think he has anything to hide, first of all. But as we see from his persona on social media, in the clubhouse, what you see is what you get, And nobody's more excited about the way that his life has gone. Nobody's more excited about this fastball and the hair that he says girls love to braid than Noah Syndergaard. And I think that enthusiasm is infectious. In a word, he's genuine. And yes, I think that he has undoubtedly become leader of that staff. He's going to start on opening day. I think he was kind of showing some respect to David Wright because I asked, are you the leader of the team? He said, on the staff. And, that's honest, and I don't think anybody, including Matt Harvey, could argue with him.
Yeah, I don't think so. Harvey kind of keeps to himself. He does his own thing in New York. He's at fashion shows. I can't see Noah Syndergaard hanging out in the same circles. Noah's going to comedy clubs, like comic books, comic heroes, that type of thing. I don't see them getting along, but professionally, when it comes to that staff, yeah, I thought that was a pretty good answer.
I guess it just made it seem like Noah Syndergaard is very close with other guys on the team, Michael Conforto, this sort of fringe players, and yet when he describes his relationship with Harvey, it's just professional.
Well, that was the one of the only things that he was not extremely expansive about, which I obviously drew some conclusions from that. But yes, he loves, Yoenis, obviously.
Who doesn't?
Very sad that Bartolo Colon is gone. Close with a lot of the younger guys, Conforto, Gesellman. Harvey, look, it's a teammate. They get along fine. They have work to do. You don't have to be best friends with everybody on the team to win.
Two Cologne references in one show.
What about expectations for this pitching staff this season?
I mean, look, I think that they did well to make the playoffs last year with really only Syndergaard of these 5 aces healthy, Syndergaard and Bartolo, with some contributions from Robert Gesellman and people like that. Yeah, man, I think that you should be excited. If Zach Wheeler gets back as well, you've got those 5 guys in the rotation for the first time. I mean, that's a damn good rotation.
You mentioned the health. Is Noah's health going to be an issue? He talks about continuing to want to throw 100 miles per hour. He's put on 17 pounds. That's quite a transformation. I know that's mostly muscle, the hope of staying healthy. Is that why he's putting that kind of weight on?
Well, 17 pounds on Syndergaard isn't quite the same as 17 pounds on you, right? You know what I mean?
By the way, Ryan, we meant to tell you.
It's not like he looks
like the Incredible Hulk if I put on 17 pounds.
And not like he looks that different.
We need a bigger chair.
But yeah, he wants to max out. He's like, I'm already throwing 100. I just want to see how far I can push it. Now, are there some health dangers in doing that? Probably. I don't know if his ulnar collateral ligament got much stronger this offseason, but he's the one guy who hasn't really had health issues. He had a bone spur thing last year, hasn't felt that for a while. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like he's the last guy. You kind of hope the other 4 guys get back, assuming that Syndergaard's going to be at the center of this thing.
Last thing before we let you go, we got to talk about the hair, Maggie.
I mean, listen, Syndergaard's talking about the hair.
$32 a bottle for hair products. That's his prized possession, I guess you'd say, for Noah. Are you sharing the same type of hair products? $32, caviar infused or whatever it was?
Well, first of all, thank you.
Brian, like you don't know. Caviar infused shampoo, like you're not.
I'm very flattered that you would think so. But look at that mane, man. I mean, we're talking about how he's cultivated this persona, and he's open, He says, the hair is kind of my personality now. He hasn't cut it for 6 months now, so don't expect him to show up in spring training with a buzz cut. But yeah, man, I mean, $32 for a bottle of caviar, it's working for him, right? Everything's working for him right now.
I stand behind that. Listen, if you're going to spend $200 on a haircut, what's $32 for some shampoo? Ben, great job.
Thanks,
Love
guys.
the piece.
Thanks, Ben.
Ryan, great week. And that's going to do it for this Friday edition of SI Now. Of course, we will be back on Monday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. It's our brand new time. We'll have NL MVP Chris Bryant and former Heisman winner and MLB hopeful and Mets hopeful Tim Tebow. Until then, stick with SI.com for all the latest news, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.